On July 7th, 2024, the city of Las Vegas officially broke. Not financially, not morally. Physically, a thermometer at Harry Reid International Airport, the city's official climate station, registered a temperature that for 82 years had been a theoretical ceiling, 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Before that day, the record was 117, a number hit 5 separate times since 1942, a barrier. Andrew Gorilow, a forecaster with the National Weather Service, described the intensity of the sun that day as impressive and stifling. That is the language of science trying to describe a system entering a new state. Planes at the airport faced operational limits, the air becoming too thin to generate sufficient lift. Pavement on the strip became a hazard. Skin could burn on contact with a car door handle. A ceiling had not just been touched, it had been shattered by 3 full degrees. And the strangest part of this story is not that a city in the Mojave Desert reached 120 degrees. It is what that number unlocked, the cascading system failures it exposed, and the future it made visible. To understand what is happening to Las Vegas, you have to understand that the city is no longer just reflecting the heat of the desert. It is manufacturing its own. An engine for generating heat on a scale unlike anywhere else in the nation. Zoom out, and the physics are brutally simple. Since the 1990s, Las Vegas has undergone one of the most explosive urban expansions in American history. Natural desert landscape, which breathes and cools at night, was systematically scraped away. It was replaced with square mile after square mile of dark asphalt, concrete, and black tar roofs. These are not neutral materials. They are thermal sponges. All day, under the desert sun, they absorb solar radiation. After sunset, when the natural desert floor begins to release its heat and cool down, the city does the opposite. It begins to bleed that stored energy back into the air. This is the urban heat island effect. And a 2021 analysis by Climate Central identified Las Vegas as having the single most intense urban heat island in the United States. Here are the numbers that define the machine. The average temperature difference between the urban core of Las Vegas and the surrounding rural desert is 7.3 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the baseline. At night, the disparity grows even larger, with the city staying up to 10.3 degrees hotter than the open desert just a few miles away. On the most extreme days, that single-day difference between a street corner on the Strip and a patch of dirt in the Mojave can be as much as 24 degrees. The city has lost its ability to cool down. The critical nighttime period, when human bodies are meant to recover from daytime thermal stress, has been eroded, then eliminated. The heat is no longer an event that ends at sunset. It is a siege. This is the part the headlines do not capture. The 120-degree record was not just a data point. It was a weapon. In the year 2024, the heat in Clark County became the single deadliest force in the region. The Southern Nevada Health District, the entity responsible for tracking mortality, recorded a number that is difficult to comprehend. 513 heat-associated deaths. That is not a typo. 513 people. It represented a 73% increase from the already high number recorded in 2023. The city was facing a mass casualty event, unfolding silently in apartments, on sidewalks, and in homeless encampments. In 2025, a year that ranked as the 5th warmest on record with 77 days at or above 100 degrees, the number of fatalities fell. A 45% drop. But it was still 284 people. 284 deaths in a single year from an entirely predictable environmental condition. But here's the detail that tells the real story of who is dying. A review of these fatalities by the Southern Nevada Health District revealed a brutal intersection of crises. Over half of the documented heat deaths involve substance use. The data is specific. 60% of those cases involved methamphetamine. Another 9% involved alcohol. These are not just substances of abuse. They are physiological modifiers that destroy the body's ability to self-regulate. Methamphetamine, in particular, can cause hyperthermia on its own. It floods the body with norepinephrine, constricting blood vessels and preventing the skin from shedding heat. It induces psychosis, making a person unable to recognize the danger they are in, unable to seek water or shelter. The extreme heat of Las Vegas did not create the city's problems with addiction and homelessness. It found them, and it turned them into a death sentence. A person experiencing a meth-induced psychotic episode on a 115-degree day is a person whose internal machinery is being targeted by two separate compounding forces. The city's relentless, manufactured heat is acting as an accelerant on its deepest social vulnerabilities. The crisis is also changing shape, its boundaries expanding across the calendar. For generations, the rhythm of life in Las Vegas was built around a retreat from the punishing peak of summer. July and August were the siege months. But that calendar is now broken. The heat season is annexing spring. On March 25, 2026, the city experienced a heat wave so unseasonable it shocked meteorologists. The temperature hit 98 degrees, an all-time record for the month of March. The average temperature through the middle of that month, 57.6 degrees, was the highest ever recorded for that period. This was not the familiar, oppressive heat of August. This was something new. Marilyn Kirkpatrick, a Clark County commissioner and a board member of the health district, issued a warning. She stated that while Southern Nevada is no stranger to extreme heat, the region was facing an unprecedented heat wave months ahead of schedule. Her most critical point was physiological. Our bodies are not yet acclimated to these temperatures, she said, and that puts people at greater risk for heat-related illnesses. The human body can adapt to heat over time, a process called acclimatization. It learns to sweat more efficiently, to manage electrolytes, but that process takes weeks of gradual exposure. The March 2026 heat wave was a shock to the system, hitting the population of Southern Nevada before their bodies had begun the annual process of preparing for summer. The danger window was no longer a predictable 3-month block. It was starting to look like a 6-month marathon. Now, here is the part nobody is putting on the news. The heat itself is only the first link in a chain of escalating failures. Every degree the temperature rises puts a direct, quantifiable strain on the region's electrical grid. The modern city of Las Vegas cannot exist without air conditioning. It is not a luxury. It is life support. That life support is provided by NV Energy, the utility company serving 4 million electric customers across the state. As temperatures soar into the triple digits, millions of ACC units switch on, drawing a colossal amount of power and pushing the grid to its absolute limit. And that system is beginning to fray. On June 4th, 2026, as another early summer heat wave descended, a conference of the Edison Electric Institute was held in Las Vegas. It was disrupted by protesters. They were not abstract climate activists. They were residents, targeting NV Energy over soaring utility bills and demanding affordable access to the clean energy needed to simply survive the summers. It was a sign of a profound social contract breaking down, the implicit promise that a modern, developed city will be able to provide the power its citizens need to remain safe in their own homes. Imagine a rolling blackout in a place like Phoenix or Las Vegas on a 118-degree day. It is a scenario that grid operators plan for and dread. It means the failure of refrigeration for food and medicine. It means the loss of cooling for data centers that power the global economy. And for the elderly, the sick, and the very young, it means the immediate onset of life threatening heat stroke inside their own living rooms. The protests of June 2026 are a symptom of a population beginning to understand that the energy required to survive is becoming a commodity they may no longer be able to afford. The same force killing people on the streets is now threatening to breach the walls of their homes through the fragility of the power grid. The cascade continues, moving from the air to the grid and now to the most fundamental resource of all: water. The entire existence of the Las Vegas Valley, its 2.3 million residents, and its 40 million annual tourists. depends on a single source for 90% of its water. The Colorado River. That water is stored just 30 miles southeast of the city in the largest reservoir in the United States, Lake Mead. And Lake Mead is evaporating. The same relentless sun and extreme heat that bake the city's asphalt are also acting directly on the surface of the reservoir, pulling moisture into the arid desert air. This is happening on top of a 2-decade megadrought that has already brought the entire Colorado River system to the brink of collapse. As of the first week of July 2026, the situation at Lake Mead has become existentially grim. The water elevation hovered at approximately 1,044.55 feet above sea level. This number sounds abstract, but it is terrifyingly close to the all-time record low of 1,040. 6 feet, which was set back in the summer of 2022. Every inch the water level drops reveals more of the stark, white bathtub ring on the canyon walls, a mineral stain showing where the water used to be. It is a graphic measure of the region's hydrological deficit. The projections are even worse. On June 16, 2026, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the federal agency that manages the Hoover Dam, released its most probable forecast. It estimated that by July of 2027, the reservoir's elevation could plummet to 1,015.77 feet. This is not just a low number. It represents a threat to the very mechanics of civilization in the desert. Here is why that number matters so profoundly. The Hoover Dam is not just a plug holding back water. It is a massive hydroelectric power plant. But its 17 turbines were not designed to operate in a half-empty reservoir. If the lake's elevation drops below 1,035 feet, a level that is now terrifyingly within sight, hydropower generation will plummet by 70%. 12 of the dam's 17 turbines are simply not engineered to function efficiently at such ultra-low water levels without risking severe damage. This creates a terrifying feedback loop. Extreme heat drives up demand for electricity for air conditioning. At the exact same moment, it is crippling one of the primary sources of that electricity by evaporating the water needed to power the turbines. More heat, less power. Less power, more danger from the heat. The crisis has become so tangible, so present, that it has spawned its own form of dystopian entertainment. In June of 2026, the online prediction platform Kalshi, which is regulated by the U.S. government, launched a new set of betting markets. They were not for sports or elections. People could now place financial wagers on the exact water elevation of Lake Mead at the end of the month. The survival of a vital natural resource for 40 million Americans had been transformed into a casino game. Traders could bet on whether the lake would end the month above or below 1,045.5 feet, their financial success tied directly to the rate of the reservoir's disappearance. The iconic fountains of the Bellagio continue to dance for tourists, an illusion of impossible abundance. Just a few miles away, people are gambling on exactly how quickly the source of that water will vanish forever. In the face of this multi-front crisis, the city of Las Vegas is not standing still. There is a frantic, and in many ways, noble effort underway to re-engineer the city to survive its own climate. At the heart of this effort is the City of Las Vegas Office of Sustainability, led by its Chief Sustainability Officer, Tom Perigo. His work is a direct counterattack on the urban heat island effect. He is a leading figure in the city's initiatives to expand its tree canopy, planting vegetation that provides shade and cools the air through evapotranspiration. Yet even here, the new reality intrudes. Perigo has stated publicly, "We think there's a lot of tree canopy that exists in Las Vegas today that probably isn't going to survive these warmer temperatures. The city is trying to plant its way out of the crisis, while the heat is simultaneously killing the very trees they need." There is another, more startling success story. The city government itself, the municipal corporation, runs entirely on renewable energy. 100% of the power for city halls, community centers, and streetlights comes from clean sources, primarily a massive solar array. It is a remarkable achievement. A city government running on the power of the same sun that is threatening to make its climate unlivable. Shelley Berkeley, who took office as the new mayor on December 4th, 2024, now oversees these mitigation efforts. She inherited a city in a state of declared emergency, a stark contrast to her predecessor, Carolyn G. Goodman, who once infamously speculated on national television in 2020 that the desert heat would simply kill the COVID-19 virus, arguing for a rapid reopening of the casinos. The official understanding of the heat has shifted from a potential savior to a clear and present danger, but the sheer scale of the problem dwarfs these municipal efforts. Powering City Hall with solar is one thing. Offsetting the thermal absorption of hundreds of square miles of asphalt is another. A common misconception among visitors, and even some residents, is that the danger of the heat is lessened because it is a dry heat. The mortality statistics from the Southern Nevada Health District are a brutal refutation of that idea. Dry, hot air acts like a sponge on the human body, accelerating dehydration at a terrifying rate. Heat is the #1 weather-related killer in the United States, and Clark County is one of its epicenters. The 513 deaths in 2024 are the proof. Another misconception is where the official temperature is even recorded. The iconic images of the Las Vegas Strip with temperature displays showing 115 degrees are just that, displays. The official, scientifically calibrated reading for the National Weather Service is taken 2 miles away, over the sun-baked pavement of Harry Reid International Airport. Though Nubu's meteorologists admit the temperatures on the Strip are virtually identical, the city has become its own uniform heat zone. The crisis is no longer a future prediction. It is a present-tense reality, documented in coroner's reports and reservoir gauges. On July 7, 2024, the city hit 120 degrees, breaking an 82-year-old record. During that same heat wave, the nearby desert basin of Death Valley National Park hit 128 degrees, leading to the deaths of tourists who underestimated the lethality of the climate. In March of 2026, the heat of summer arrived in spring, hitting 98 degrees. And right now, as of today, July 3rd, 2026, the water that sustains the city is draining away, with an elevation at Lake Mead of just over 0.44 feet. The Bureau of Reclamation's projections suggest that within a year, the city could face catastrophic power shortages from the Hoover Dam. The city is fighting back, with sustainability officers like Tom Perigo attempting to cool the concrete oven with new trees, and the city government powering its own buildings with solar. But the fundamental physics of the situation are overwhelming. So, 3 questions now hang over the Las Vegas Valley. They are not abstract. They are immediate and existential. First, what happens to a dense urban population of over 2 million people when the electrical grid can no longer supply the cooling that has become mandatory for survival? The protests of June 2026 were a warning shot. The real event will not be a protest. It will be a blackout. Second, how does a city built on the promise of fantasy and abundance reckon with the hard physical limits of its water supply, especially when that supply is now the subject of public gambling? The fall of Lake Mead is not a slow-motion disaster. It is an accelerating countdown to a series of specific, known trigger points for water cuts and power failure. And finally, what does it mean to live in a city that is actively becoming too hot for human biology to safely handle? The 513 deaths in 2024 were not an anomaly. They were the first large-scale signal of a new normal, a future where the intersection of extreme heat and social vulnerability creates a permanent, seasonal public health catastrophe. The sun that is setting over Las Vegas tonight is not the same sun that set a generation ago. The heat it leaves behind is trapped in the concrete and asphalt, an artificial fever that will not break before morning. The water in Lake Mead is, at this very moment, evaporating into the arid air, its level dropping by fractions of an inch. The air conditioning units in 2 million homes and hotel rooms are drawing power from a grid that is straining under the load. A new ceiling was reached on July 7th, 2024. The real question is what happens when the city tries to break it again.